Hi everyone, welcome to Values. Today we're looking at Virgin Galactic. Now this stock should be flying, but it's not. Like, they've just done their first commercial flight, which they actually got paid for, yet the stock's actually down. The last 2 days have been quite horrible, to be exact, going from less than $5 to less than $4. And it's quite a far cry from when they were actually hitting as high as up to $6 in about the 20th of June. Now we know why they've got hit there in June when they announced their capital raising of about $700 million. So I think that overhang still has a massive part to play right now. Until that's all cleared, I think people aren't comfortable with where the stock is right now, because no matter where you're heading, there's massive dilution, massive amount of stock that's going to come onto the market. And at the same time, you're just not in a good market where people want to buy up these stocks, because firstly, you're not making a profit, you're barely making any revenues. So that's the thing. Like, the thing that's going for them is they've done a massive investment into getting where they are right now. They've spent so much time doing it as well. So that definitely, there's a lot of value there. But at the current situation, the market's not valuing it because of that share dilution. The valuations are dropping for these type of companies, and that's having a huge effect. And that's contributed mainly by a high increase in interest rates, which means the opportunity costs of every investor is highly calculated. And in most cases, they don't want to be in a company that isn't generating a lot of value. I think in later stages, when the markets are more upbeat, I think Virgin Galactic will ride that wave, and the valuation will go much higher. But at the current time, until that capital raising clears out, and then also when the markets start to feel more confident, a bit more optimistic, then I think things are going to be a bit stronger later. So I'd say for Virgin Galactic, it's a good time to be buying the stock when it's cheap. But at the same time, you got to have that long time horizon that potentially you could be holding into the next year, when the interest rates start to drop, and that's when the markets start to look a bit more positive. Of course, you're looking at the other tech stocks and going, well, why do I want to hold this money here when I could be investing in another company that could be increasing? Because there's a lot of companies out there increasing, and a lot of people would have thought Virgin Galactic would have been increasing after this milestone. But quite the opposite. Turns out everyone was just waiting for this to happen so they could get out, and no one was smarter than anyone in this situation, because everyone that tried to get out at the same time, and the stocks just crumbled, and it's kind of made people panic. People sell down, and at the same time, you really, really shouldn't panic, because that's a problem when you buy into these type of stocks, that if you want to time your exit, it's really risky, because you can't time your exits, particularly with growth companies, because they could hit a really bad patch, as Virgin Galactic is hitting with their stock right now. Of course, the business is flying high. The business is, raising a lot of money, very secure. They're going to do a second commercial flight at the start of August. And I think that's also probably another milestone that the stock will be going towards, that everyone's going to be looking at that second flight and going, who's flying? Is there any celebrities? Is there enough stuff to get the hype going for this company? Because right now there's not much news that's coming on, so I think it's going to be a dampener. The stock's not going to really hit much of a stride. It's probably just going to stabilize. So anyone that wants to exit at these prices, they'll be exiting, and the ones that are willing to hold will be holding for the next flight in August, which is just over a month away. So if you've got the time horizon, then it's just worth holding through that. If you don't, then of course you will want to consider your own personal circumstances and see how you go. But yeah, of course, it's nothing. It's kind of it's gutting. Of course, you've just had a company hit a massive milestone, and it's taken them so long to do it, and it's only received by a negative, impact on that share price. Of course, the share price is higher than it was at the start of June. So overall, if you're looking at the trend, it is overall up. But of course, once you've just hit $6 and then just come back all the way down, it's a massive, massive kick in the gut, because a lot of people will be um, looking at that and going, why didn't they sell? Why didn't you sell? And I think that's one question you always ask yourself in stock investing, particularly of like, why didn't I get out of the stock when I had the chance to? Why don't I get out at $6? Like, you can never time these things. Like, I always look at that and think, how do you beat that? Like, sometimes you really can't, because like, there's too much greed in your mind. There's too much like focused, a lot of like promise, a lot of hope. Like, the only thing you can use to beat that is that whenever your stock flies, like, goes up quite a lot, you cut your position. But I find that everyone's always a lot of extremes. They either sell all at once, or they don't sell at all. So the only approach you can really tailor for your investing is that you have to sell a portion as the stock price goes up, because you got to lock in those profits, you got to minimize that risk, and at the same time, because you remember, a stock that's been flying very high, very quickly, is going to also possibly come down very quickly, because there's a lot of profit taking, there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of potential built into things that don't get realized. And yeah, there's a lot of considerations that go on. So you don't ever want to be in a position where you're being forced by the circumstances of pressure and time, and you have to sell. Because right now, if you had to sell at 388, the biggest question is, were you just holding for this one part when they were going commercial, and you're hoping for the share price to fly up? Because sometimes that's the really, really wrong approach, unless you're trading the market, and this is one of those things that can go really, really wrong. So yeah, like, I think you really have to look at your approach towards how you hold stocks, how you choose to invest. I've definitely, like, been through that so many times, and I can tell you, those feelings really stay very similar. You always feel like stocks have a lot of promise. You want to hold for that certain milestone, but in reality, it's like you just have to take the profit when it's there. Take a fraction. Like, you don't have to sell everything. You don't have to not sell at all. It's just this mechanism in us that is very, it's kind of triggered by emotion, but you shouldn't let your investing be triggered by emotion. You should have procedures in place to minimize your loss. Like, investing is about preserving your wealth rather than trying to make a massive gain. Of course, everyone's focus is always to make a massive gain, and that's where the risk actually increases, because you're doing things that are not in your advantage. Like, if you made a decision that, hey, the stock price is trading at less than $4, and then when it gets to $6, that's over 50% up on the when you start buying, or when you start looking at your situation. And then if a position is 50% higher, 50% is a massive, massive return, a great return. So that's where you really have to start looking at your situation and going, should I start reducing my position to reduce my risk? And usually the answer is yes. Like, where you can reduce your risk, always take that chance to, particularly if you don't have cash on the sidelines. So, like, if you had cash on the sidelines and you sold some at $6, and you decided at $3.88 right now that you want to buy some more, not only have you reduced your risk, you've actually managed to buy some more at a really, really good price. So that's when you really want to consider your approach to investing. Sometimes people just don't have the knowledge or the skill, or the focus. Where sometimes you're really busy, you don't want to focus on this type of stuff, and that's fine. You just hold. If you've got the time horizon, hold to this company does really well. Hold to the market's return, and it will be rewarded in this company when they get a few commercial flights under their belt. And I think the markets are going to really turn around once, especially when the space companies become back in trend. Like, there's always a situation where these companies are in favor and a lot of people want to buy them, and right now they're out of favor. No one really wants to pay attention to these type of stocks. Like there will be a situation where it will be like, say if Elon Musk goes, he wants to list Starlink, and then all of a sudden the market's going, oh, space is hot again. Starlink, we want to get in Starlink, we want to get in Rocket Lab, we want to get in Virgin Galactic, we want to get in all these really good quality space companies. Then the trend goes back into these companies, and then that's where the stock price does really well, and that's your next best timing as well. So if this company's at this current stage, it's going to only hit more milestones. You're basically held through the toughest part of this company's history as being a public company. Now you just have to hold why they generate a lot of value for shareholders, because they're in the commercial phase, which is the most lucrative and valuable proposition for this type of company. So now is this time to just really buckle down and hold. Of course, you hope the share price shouldn't drop anymore. Like, I think at this stage, potentially it could drop a little bit more, but it's going to stabilize. Particularly since it has a lot of cash in the bank. The risk of it failing is very low. It's even lower now because they're commercial. So here's the irony of stock investing. Currently, the share price is $3.88, and you look at the start of last month, it was about just a very similar pricing, about $3.68. And at that stage, the company had not actually gone commercial yet. They had not done their first commercial flight. So now that they've done a first commercial flight, they're actually receiving money. The risk is significantly lower. It's still trading at very similar pricing. So this is where the markets are really funny, because the risk is lowered, but you've actually got a similar pricing. So hence why, it's a better time to buy than it was a month ago. But of course, markets don't really consider it that way. And at the end of the time, when I look at investing, and there's always a very important question posed to you. What is the advantage that you have as an investor over any other investor? In most cases, it's only time. Like, you're either in a special position to influence the company, or you have special knowledge to understand how the company succeeds beyond what other people will see, or you have time. And that's the major factor that every investor, underestimates. Like, if you have more time to hold this company than anyone else, then there's one point in time where this company will do well. And if you have the right proper strategies, if you go, where do you next sell? Like, if the share price hits $6, will you take part of the position off the table? Or will you do it at $8, or will you do it at $10? Because it's not going to do its historical highs. Like, it's beyond this position right now, where it's going to go back to like $46 or something like that. We're kind of beyond that stage, where at most the stock might be worth several times. Like, at least until they, maybe in 3 years' time, when they get their Delta spacecrafts are up and running and are flying every week. Right now, it's probably not as optimistic. Like, if you've got that time horizon to go, I will hold for 3 years until they get those weekly flights going, then yeah, sure, you could do that as well. And that is, again, making what's in your favor, which is time. If you can make time work for you, then you can beat a lot of investors. And that's really how you consider your advantages, the way you cut, you lower your risk, because that's the very important part in investing. Anyway, I feel like I've rambled, but I just feel like I really want to tell you these things, particularly if you're in this type of stock, where it's very volatile, there's a lot of risk, and sometimes you're put in situations that are uncomfortable and you don't know what to do. So I feel like I have to explain this type of situation, so you feel better about it, and you've got a better way of approaching it as well. All right. I'll leave you there, and hopefully it doesn't. I don't leave it too long till I make my next video. I'll try to be more active, especially since markets are looking slightly better. They haven't actually been looking that much better, but they're slowly getting there. Alright, I'll leave you there. Until then, good luck investing, everyone.